Hey guys, in today's introduction to the video of the pursuit of life, liberty, and justice, we're actually looking at the pro-life issue, the issue of abortion. And you might think, well, why is a Christian club focusing on this? This is a very political issue. Well, one thing that we find is that most of today's major hot button political issues did not start off in politics. They just started off as societal issues. They are things that are happening in our society that impact people, and the Bible and preachers have been talking about these issues for a lot longer than the government has been legislating on them. And so I personally think that the abortion topic is a fantastic introductory topic for apologetics, because if you think about apologetics and learning how to do the defense of the faith, you want to use evidences, you want to use reasons, and you want to use wit. You want to have a good personality and good rapport as you're doing it. And so on the abortion issue, it is science-based. There is plenty of evidence. There is a public misunderstanding about many aspects of it. We have to treat those who disagree with us with respect. And this is a moral issue before it's a political issue. So we have a nurse speaking to us on this, and her information is just as relevant today as it was back then, though I did cut out some of the more graphic points. One, because YouTube might flag it as offensive, and I'm sure there's other videos online that you can catch that has the same content, and we're just trying to get this out to people. Second, as a warning, there is one picture of a dismembered baby. It is very blurry. It's super sad, but it helps bring in the reality of abortion. And so we hope that instead of turning off this video, if you find it offensive, just look away. But do listen for the content, because one of the most important aspects of the abortion issue is the truth. And we need to know the truth of what abortion is, and does it really merit being a right in this country?
I want to thank Patrick for inviting me to speak tonight about the issue of life. And I titled this One Nation Under God with Liberty and Justice for All. And tonight we're going to be talking about a lot of injustice that's happening right now in the United States. With this, I wanted to start off with this quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And it says, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." And as a church, we have definitely been silent about things that matter for a long time. But if you are not a religious person, just as an American, we've been silent. I am a volunteer with a ministry here known as Choose Life, which is the Crisis Pregnancy Center downtown. We are located off of Rands Avenue, which is behind the Women and Children's Hospital on Governor's Drive. We see over 400 clients a month. It's a very needed ministry right here in our community. We have seen, since we opened our doors in 1981, over 70,000 people in our facility. We see women who are there for a crisis pregnancy. We see women there because they know we offer free services. Every service we offer is completely free. We're a nonprofit organization. And we see women who have had abortions, who maybe one or multiple, who come in because they're hurting or they're having flashbacks, and we'll talk about that more in detail later. But we have services there and counselors who are there completely free to offer services for them. Since January 22nd, 1973 until today, we have had over 50 million abortions in the United States of America. There's 50 million kids and adults my age and younger who should be here right now. So we have definitely been silent too long. So the age-old question is, when does life begin? Well, I am a registered nurse. I actually graduated with my Bachelor's of Science in Nursing from UAH a little over 10 years ago. My background, woohoo! So I'm back on campus. It's changed a little bit, but I was able to maneuver. But with that, medical evidence is so obvious now that you cannot dispute when life begins. We know that when a woman ovulates and an egg is released and she has sex, sexual intercourse, and a sperm is there, when the sperm and the egg meet, immediately when the sperm penetrates the egg hardens, and they say within less than a second, everything about that child is determined. All the genetic material mixes, and we have a unique human being. That means that child, at that moment, the hair color, eye color, their traits, their features, are they going to be short, are they going to be tall, are they going to be shy, are they going to be outgoing and boisterous? Everything is determined at that moment. That is when life begins. Now what I want to do is just take you through the life cycle. And what I find very interesting is I read a lot of reports from abortionists, and they will tell you the one thing that they absolutely hate is when people get to see when life begins in the development of a baby, because people are very uninformed about this issue. People are still told today, and I know this because I counsel girls and I see girls and I'm a client advocate, that it was just a blob of tissue. I had one girl who came in, and you would call it a psychotic break, and had the privilege of having a licensed social worker there with us who volunteers. And this girl was having a break. She had gone to an abortion clinic here in Huntsville. She had been feeling her baby move, and she had told them, "I'm feeling movement." And they said, "No, you're not." She was about 16 weeks, 4 months. The baby's fully formed. You'll see in a minute. And they said, "No, you're not, honey. It's just a blob of tissue." And so they did the abortion. She went home, was bleeding, which is expected, but she kept feeling pressure. So she went to her bathroom, and she pushed and delivered the foot of her baby. They had left a foot. So she knew at that moment, what have I done? I've just paid somebody to kill my child. But they had deceived her and told her, it's just a blob of tissue. This is happening all the time. When you think about it, every day in the United States, every 23 to 24 seconds, we're having an abortion performed. We have 3,600 abortions performed every day in the United States. So when you think about conception, at 18 days, we know the baby's heart is beating. I'm also trained to do ultrasounds, and I volunteer on the weekends to perform ultrasounds. We have 6 OB-GYNs who volunteer and come into our clinics also. We know the heart's beating. I see it all the time when I'm there when we do the ultrasounds. Day 22, the baby's own blood, usually a different type than the mother, starts circulating through the placenta for nourishment. Already, the baby has a different blood type. I have 3 children. 2 of my kids have different blood types than my husband and myself. I'm O positive, he's A negative. I have 2 children with A positive blood. They took his type, my factor. That's a unique individual. Day 28, arm and leg buds begin to appear. Spinal cord, nervous system, thyroid gland, lungs, liver, stomach, kidneys, and intestines are identifiable. The mouth and tongue are recognizable. Day 35, all fingers can be seen. Fingerprints that are unique to only that individual will be seen soon. That's another thing. This child already is developing their own fingerprints. Next week at our kids' school, they're going to be fingerprinting our kids, because we know worldwide everyone has a different fingerprint that is unique to that individual. Day 40 and 42, brain waves can be detected and recorded. As a nurse, working at Huntsville Hospital on peds for several years, I also worked in the intensive care unit. We would see traumas, very severe car wrecks. We would see drownings. I remember working with a child who was truly incompatible with life. This child was a drowning victim. There was no heartbeat, no respirations. We had the child just sustained on a vent. But we checked to make sure this child did not have brain waves before the parents wanted to donate his organs. So we did the EEG. This child had absolutely no brain waves. At that point, the doctor said, "It is your call. We can take him off the machines." And the parents chose to do that. This would be my question to you. If at day 40 to 42, a small baby, we can already detect brain waves, if the absence of brain waves is an indicator of death, then why would a pro-abortionist not accept that the presence of brain waves indicates life? 7 weeks old. Eyelids protect the baby's eye, which are sensitive to light. Ears are complete. Family traits are evident. Muscles are forming. Baby is kicking and swimming and is able to suck his thumb. This is a picture inside the womb of an 8-week-old baby. We know now with the new developments of the 3D ultrasounds, now we have some 4D ultrasounds. It's like a window to the womb. You can really see what the baby's doing. You can see the features. Organs and body systems are present, responds to touch, and can feel pain. And I have a handout, and we'll do this later. I've got a lot of handouts that I'll give everyone, but I have an article in there by an OBGYN who talks about fetal pain and how the myelin sheaths are not completely covered like they are with us, so that an infant, as they're going through an abortion and they're pulling their limbs off, they actually feel excruciating pain. They feel more pain than you and I would perceive. 10 weeks old, brain structure is complete. Baby can swallow, move tongue, and squint. Vocal cords are present. Fingernails develop. 16 weeks. This is a 4-month-old baby. Turns head and kicks legs, bends wrist and moves arms, turns head and makes facial expressions. Taste buds and salivary glands appear. Swallows amniotic fluid and starts to urinate. A lot of people go, they urinate and they drink that. Everything is sterile at that point. That's their own environment. 20 weeks, 5 months old. Hair and eyebrows are present. Sleep and wake cycles and may even have a preferred sleeping position. Hiccups often and is at least 12 inches long. With my last child, who is now 2, I had to have emergency surgery, and they cut me sternum down. I was 20 weeks. I was 5 months. Before I went into surgery, they actually had to move the uterus and shift it over to do surgery. I had cancer when I was younger, and so it was due to that why I had to have surgery. But with Audrey, they did an ultrasound before I went into surgery, and Audrey was kicked back, and she was sucking her thumb like this little guy is. And she had this hand up by her face, and she was sucking this thumb. Audrey still, every night when I put her to bed, she gets her blanket, which she calls her danket, and she puts it up by her face, and she sucks the same thumb. It makes sense. They're doing the same thing in the womb as they're doing out. It's the same child. But I love this picture because it reminds me of Audrey. 24 weeks old, 6 months, opens and closes eyelids. Testing shows response to sound. Permanent teeth buds form and baby starts accumulating fat under the skin. Everything is developed. They're just really getting bigger right now. 28 weeks, 7 months. As you can tell, this is a little boy baby. He's kind of showing his stuff here, but you can tell he's really cramped up now. They've gotten really big now. 16 inches long and approximately 2.5 pounds. The baby is now in the fetal position and has grown to fill the space available. And you can tell this guy's pretty squished. 8 months. Audrey was born a little premature, so I just went ahead and put this picture of her because she was born early. So she was 8 months. 90% chance of survival if born prematurely, 18 inches long and approximately 4 pounds. 9 months, they continue to mature. 19 to 21 inches long is an average weight. Length, and then the average weight is around 7 pounds, 7.5 pounds for delivery. Now we've kind of covered the cycle of life there, the life cycle. So now I want to just pick a few scriptures that I really like about what God says about life. Jeremiah 1, 4, and 5. God is actually speaking to Jeremiah here. And he says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." I love this scripture because God is telling Jeremiah, before you were even born, before your parents even thought about getting together to have you, I knew you, and I knew you would be a prophet for me. That's what I designed you for. To me, this scripture speaks volumes because we are all unique in the way that God made us. We're all His creation, and He made us with all with certain abilities and talents. My husband's an aerospace engineer. I know we've got a lot of engineers in here. Great at math, physics. He can design airplanes and rockets and missiles. He really is a rocket scientist. I can't make a paper airplane. My son's like, "Mom, can't you do it like Dad?" And I'm like, "Son, go see your father." So, but God has given him that ability. I personally like science. I know we've got some nursing people in here, and that's my background. I love science and biology. The next scripture is out of Psalms. It's, "For you created my inmost being, you knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place. When I was woven together in the depths of the earth, your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be." Then in Isaiah 44:24 says, "This is what the Lord says, your Redeemer, who formed you in the womb. I am the Lord, who has made all things, who alone stretched out the heavens, who spread out the earth by myself." In Genesis 1:27, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them." And then in Proverbs, it says, "The Lord hates hands that shed innocent blood." There are many more scriptures, but I could be here all night just doing that on scriptures. What really stands out about that is innocent blood. Besides Jesus Christ, whose blood was completely innocent, when you look at that, what blood is more innocent than that of an unborn child? Now I want to talk about abortion procedures. As I talk about this, you've seen the life cycle, so you will know more about where the baby was in development when we talk about the different types. With suction aspiration, this is the most common type of abortion that's being performed every day in the United States. Most girls are having abortions between 8 to 12 weeks. They've missed a period, they're saying, uh-oh, something's not right, and by the time they get a pregnancy test, they're going to be pushing about 8 weeks. At 8 weeks, the baby responds to pain, we know, and the baby has everything that it's going to have as a human. Everything's been formed. So this is the most common method. Please keep in mind that 95% or more of abortions are performed merely for birth control reasons. The cervix is quickly dilated. With this, also keep in mind, guys, these slides kind of build on each other. We're going to talk about physical complications of abortions, what the mother goes through later. This is an unnatural opening of that cervix. It's very fast, and it's a very brutal opening. And the cervix is very tight, it's very closed, and that's the way it's designed, is to be tight and be closed.
And it holds the baby.
That's right, it holds the baby when you're pregnant. So the cervix is quickly dilated. A suction curette, which is a hollow tube with a knife-edge tip, is inserted into the womb. This instrument is connected to a strong vacuum, which is 23 to 29 times stronger than your household vacuum. That tears the baby's limbs off and sucks the pieces through a tube into a bottle to be discarded. Now, what I want to do now is I'm going to actually show you a video of a baby being aborted. This is only by ultrasound, so I want to preface that in case anyone wants to close their eyes or not watch it. The video, was made back actually in the 80s, and the physician who actually made this video was an abortionist. This video is made by an abortionist to actually send out to abortion clinics as a training video. And so as he was editing this video, and this was done on a 12-week-old baby, he went back to watch this video, and I've edited the video down, but you can go on YouTube and look up this video. But what he did is they went back to watch it, and it was the nurse in the clinic and then this doctor, the abortionist. And as he watched this video, he saw the baby, and he saw the baby as they were going in with the probe. He saw the baby shift up in the mother's womb where he was trying to get away from the suction machine. And then he could see where the baby actually clings on and is trying to hold on to something to get away from the suction machine. And then finally when they do grab his little leg and they're pulling him down and they're pulling his leg off, and this is what happens, they go limb and limb, the baby opens his mouth in a scream. So this video is called The Silent Scream. I did not want to show the entire video, but if you do want to see the entire video, you can go on YouTube and actually type in The Silent Scream and you can watch it. So this is just a few minute segment of the video. All right. So please keep in mind that every day we have over 3,600 abortions performed in the United States. The majority of abortions are performed in this manner. Now, you witnessed just a little bit of the doctor. You could see him doing that. And just try to remember that. I know it's hard to get that out of your mind sometimes, but try to remember that when we talk about what the mother experiences later, because it'll make sense to you. The next image is graphic. This is the result of what happens after. This is the product of the abortion after.
Before you go to that, just a quick question on the video. Just to clarify, the abortionist that's giving instructions, he is still pro-abortion at that point in time?
Well, no. What had happened is, with the video, an abortionist had made that video, and they were reviewing it, and when he saw that, he was so horrified that he actually turned the video over and became pro-life. And he had done over 10,000 abortions himself.
Right, but the man that...
Now, the man who is actually showing this was another abortionist. And he said he personally was responsible for over 75,000 abortions, and he was actually one of the founders of NARAL, which is a very strong pro-abortion group that is still going today. He is pro-life, and he took this video, and then they worked together, and now it's actually used in the pro-life movement. So this will be a graphic image coming up, just to warn you. So this is the result of just 10 weeks, a suction abortion. If you ever are involved in a crisis pregnancy center, or you ever have someone you know who has had an abortion, and they see this, remember, it is always told it's a blob of tissue. Oh, sweetheart, it's not a baby, it's just a blob of tissue. I've dealt with hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people now. I've been a volunteer for over 8 years, and I've talked to numerous people. I actually am one of the client advocates. I meet every week in a support group, and we usually have so many women. We have multiple support groups meeting at different locations through Huntsville for women who are suffering from post-abortion stress, and we'll go into that. But we have women who might look over and the drape falls off the canister and they see this, and we wonder why they're traumatized. We wonder why they're having nightmares. We wonder why they're hearing babies crying at night. Another abortion procedure is salt poisoning or a saline injection. This is not used that often at all anymore. We've had a lot of babies who survived this, and that is not what the abortionist wants, to deliver an alive baby. That's not a good thing for their business. What they would do in a saline abortion is they would actually inject a very strong salt solution in the abdomen of the mother. Now remember, a baby at this point is drinking that amniotic fluid, which is just normal, like just sterile fluid. Well, we're injecting the strong salt content, which actually acts like an acid. So they're not only drinking this, which is burning the inside of their body, but it's on the outside of their body too. When these babies are born, what happens is it takes them an hour or so to die, and the mother feels violent kicks. The women I've talked to who had this done years ago will tell you, I could just feel them kicking. I don't know, it's like they were turning over in there. Well, you know, they were fighting, they were hurting. Once the baby dies, though, the body responds, and they go ahead and the baby is aborted at that time. The baby comes out as a baby. I mean, you look at it, but it's a dead baby, and it's burned. They literally look like they've been burned. So, and there are testimonies. You can go on YouTube again and type in of survivors of saline abortions, and you'll find testimonies of women who survived. Prostaglandin chemical abortions. These abortions they can either put chemicals inside of the vagina up to the cervix, and they can be delivered to the body that way, or they are usually just taken. They can be taken orally. The chemicals that are given cause the muscles to contract, and it causes the uterus to contract, and when it does, the contractions are so strong that a lot of people reported that the babies would be born, it kills the babies, but that they would be born decapitated. The contractions are so strong. Hysterotomy, or a cesarean section, which is a C-section, usually performed in the last trimester, similar to a C-section delivery, except the umbilical cord is usually cut before delivery, so the baby suffocates in the womb. Sometimes the baby is still alive when taken out of the womb and is left out to die. Now and again you can go and research this too, back in 2002, George Bush actually put into law Born Alive Infants Act, and why he did that is a lady, an RN who was working at Christ Hospital, which was a pro-choice Lutheran, it's got a great name, but it was a pro-choice Lutheran hospital in Illinois. She went in on shift, and one of the nurses was talking about this baby just wouldn't die. And so she had no idea that this hospital was even doing abortions, but they were doing this type of abortion. And so a mother had come in, and they were doing several of them, but on this one particular one, a mother had come in and she found out her baby had Downs. She didn't want a child with Down syndrome, so she chose to abort her child. So she went through, they did the abortion, the baby was born alive, so he was crying, and we don't want the baby to be crying, so they wrapped it up and they put it in the sole utility closet. Well, they kept saying this baby's crying and won't shut up, and they could hear it, and it should be dead by now. Nobody's fed it, nobody's done anything with it, and she was so horrified, she went and found it, wrapped it up, and went and rocked it for 45 minutes until it took its last breath. She exposed this hospital, ended up losing her job, and this happened in '99. She lost her job in 2001. They fired her just because of her speaking out against the hospital. It went before Congress and Senate, and then George Bush finally passed the law to protect these children if they're born alive. Partial birth abortion, this again was a ban was placed on it. Originally there was a ban. Clinton ended up removing the ban. George Bush put the ban back on in '03. We'll see where it goes right now. We definitely have our pro-choice people pushing for this to be legal again. This is an unbelievably gruesome procedure. Guided by ultrasound, the abortionist grabs the baby's legs and pulls them out. What they do is they pull them out feet first. Now, when a baby is born, they're born usually head first, but they want their feet out first. They used to do it the other way around, but babies were crying and mothers were hearing that. I had one lady say, I kept hearing my baby cry, and I thought they didn't want that head out. So now they do feet first. They are not supposed to be doing this now in the States, but I'm sure it's still happening, unfortunately. But they go feet first, they bring the baby out, they leave the head in. So it's a full-term baby, guys. This baby could be just delivered. I mean, it's inches away from being delivered and could be put in an incubator and placed for adoption. But the mother wants an abortion, so they have the head still inside the woman. The baby is out now kicking. This is a perfectly healthy baby. And the doctor will go in and take scissors and puncture it through the back of the head, open those scissors up, and then take a suction machine and suck its brain out. Now, some doctors, I've heard things reported where because the baby is flailing and moving so much that they'll actually clip their spinal cord because they want them to be still. So they'll paralyze them first, and then they go in and suck their brains out, and then the baby is dead and delivered. And this is just an illustration of that. You can tell they're delivering, they're having to turn the baby, deliver them feet first because the baby is already in fetal position at this point. So they're having to flip them around, bring them out feet first, and then try to keep the head in while they're doing the procedure. Abortifacients. There are many abortifacients out there now. Of course, we have the morning after pill, which can be taken up to 72 hours after sexual intercourse to prevent pregnancy. RU486 can be taken up to 49 days after the last period. Mother delivers the baby at home. This is not a good thing, guys. I've talked to many, many, many girls who it's just a blob of tissue and they deliver a baby. The baby has arms, feet, eyes, nose, mouth, and they're looking at their child. And they're in their bathroom with nobody to help them. And they are panicking. We have also had several deaths from RU486. So far, I think we're up to 13 deaths. Then the pill. and that's been around forever. The mini pill, which is Yaz, Jasmine, the seasonal, we've got class action lawsuits against that, but it's still out there. The patch, which is absorbed through the skin, 60% more estrogen. Many blood clots reported, several deaths, and many lawsuits. IUD, which is an intrauterine device, and that's just placed in there, and it can be, there's two different types. One's a copper device. And then the NuvaRing, and it's inserted once a month, and we've got several lawsuits on that. Now people will say, well, with that or with the pill, or you've got Depo-Provera, which is an injection you can get, and you have to get it every 3 months. They'll say, well, that way you just don't ovulate, so I'm not really having an abortion. Well, that would be a great scenario, but we know what these do is they actually irritate and make the lining of the uterus so irritated that the baby can't implant there. What a lot of people don't realize is when a lady ovulates, the egg is released out of the ovary, it travels up the fallopian tube, she has sex, and the sperm goes up, and usually conception occurs actually within the fallopian tube. And then that egg travels down, so that child's developed now, it's going to travel down and implant, usually and hopefully, in the top part of the uterus. That's where we want it to implant. And then that's its nourishment. But when it comes down to implant, if that lining is not right and it's a harsh environment, then the baby will be expelled. So there are different methods to these. So effects of abortion on the mother. So of course we know that what happens to the baby is going to die in a brutal fashion. But what happens to the mother? Because I'm not only concerned with the baby, I'm concerned with the mother. So abortion is the 5th leading cause of maternal death in the U.S., even though most abortion-related deaths are not officially reported as such. You can read over and over and over abortionists who have stopped working, retired abortionists, and I have an article from one you can read, and they will tell you, we're in it for the money. Guys, this is a multi-billion-dollar business. Planned Parenthood, which is the largest abortion provider in the world, has had over $2 billion of our tax dollars, of our money, is going to them. I'm not okay with that, but that's what's been happening. They're in it for the money. Then breast cancer, and I've got pamphlets on that. The risk of breast cancer almost doubles after one abortion due to hormonal changes affecting breast tissue. Now, if you look at a lady who has a miscarriage, she's not at risk. And people go, well, why? Is that kind of the same thing? No, it's not. With a miscarriage, a lady's hormones will drop down because the body senses something is not right for whatever reason. Fetal abnormality, whatever. Baby might not even be developed in there, and you might just have the sac. The hormones will drop down and the body naturally miscarries. With an abortion, we've got a healthy pregnancy, healthy mom, everything's going right, and then you introduce this trauma to the body. The body has no idea what's happening. Well, the body, I mean, this is all unnatural. There would be no difference if I went up and started stabbing a woman in her stomach. The body would react. All the stress hormones, everything goes up because it has no idea what's happening. This is an unnatural attack on the body. So all her hormones go up to try to sustain that pregnancy and try to protect the life that's there. Well, when you have that shift in those hormones, and it's a high surge of hormones, then you have changes in the breast tissue, and it makes them very much more susceptible to breast cancer. You can actually take a girl who has had an abortion, and there are things that sometimes girls will do. They'll have one and then they immediately regret it. Some don't regret it until years, and some immediately, they can get off the table and go, what have I done? And they go try to get pregnant again to try to replace that baby. And that's part of post-abortion stress we'll get into. They can come into the crisis pregnancy center wanting to be pregnant. They want to be pregnant again, and you can get positive tests. They're not pregnant anymore, and they're not pregnant again, but their body's hormone levels are so high and still there because it was a unnatural trauma. They'll still read as a positive test for a little while. Uterine perforations, ripping or puncturing the uterine wall. I have a very good friend of mine who finally years later, after I was involved in the Crisis Pregnancy Center here, who came to me and she said, I want to keep your children for you, which was a blessing because I needed someone to keep them while I volunteered there. And I was like, oh, thank you, God. It was an answered prayer. And she started crying and she said, I want to keep them because maybe I can save a life or I can save a girl from going through what I did. And she finally admitted that when she was 15 years old, she was in love with her boyfriend. They dated for a little while. First time they had sex, she got pregnant. She went and told his family first, and they said, all right, this isn't what we planned, but we're going to make it. We can do this, and we'll figure it out. We'll raise the baby, and y'all can finish school, and we'll make it work. So they said, okay. So she went to tell her mother, and her mother said, I don't think so. She said, this baby's going to ruin your life. She said, I'm taking you right now. She took her to Planned Parenthood, which was in Birmingham. They held her down. She was screaming in there, and the doctor, she said, the abortionist even said, what, do you not want this, or what, like being very aggressive with her, and she said no. And her mother said no. I said do it, and they held her down and did it. So it was a very brutal procedure on top of that. With that abortion, she had to have a radical hysterectomy. That means losing both ovaries and uterus. Okay? That means no children anymore. She has had to have a bladder tack. And anybody in nursing here, you don't see bladder tacks until you're a lot older, on our older ladies. She has had numerous surgeries due to the damage that was done in that abortion clinic. She remembered her doctor's name. She started Googling him and started doing some research. The week after she had her abortion there, he actually killed a girl in the clinic. So I looked at her and said, hey, you at least made it. You made it. So she's been in counseling and she's doing much better. But that problem baby that was going to ruin her life has put her in counseling for years and has left her without the ability to have children now. Cervical lacerations and incompetence. That is an incompetent cervix. That's what I was talking about. When you saw the abortionist in there, they are unnaturally dilating that cervix and they're doing it fast. Abortionists will tell you, hey, this is good money. I can get $350 to $500 per abortion, and I can knock them out 5 to 10 minutes. And a lot of them just like to work on Saturdays. They'll only work 1 day a week and rotate out. And they'll tell you their annual salary, they can make easily 1 day a week, $150,000 a year. And that doesn't include all the kickbacks and bonuses from the insurance companies, because it's a lot cheaper for insurance to pay for an abortion than it is to pay $7,000 to $9,000 for them to deliver that baby. So a lot of kickbacks and bonuses for that. And then placenta previa. Abortion increases the risk of placenta previa in later pregnancies by 7 to 15-fold. When that placenta detaches, guys, that's the source of the nutrients for that baby. But the placenta is very large. That is the last thing that's delivered usually in childbirth. And it is very large and it's very vascular. And if you have this detach, you're going to have a mama who can bleed and hemorrhage to death. I mean, it can be an emergency. And of course, the baby will die if it's not immediately delivered. Very serious complication. So effects of abortion on the mother. Psychological effects. This is what I see every single week. Every single week. As I am talking right now, there's a group of ladies right now in Huntsville, and I'm not going to say where they are meeting, but they're actually a support group for women who are suffering from having abortions. One was a rape victim, and it happened about 20 years ago. We've had several who they just decided to do it. They were students, and nothing was going to interfere with their education, they thought. So we know that we have post-abortion stress syndrome. This is just like post-traumatic stress that you see. David Reardon at the Elliott Institute reported that after having abortions, women would say that 61% reported flashbacks. That's very common. 54% had anniversary reactions. That can be the date of that abortion, or a lot of times girls will tell me they know exactly when their baby was due. On that baby's due date is when it really hits them. 33% reported feeling suicidal, very common. 78% feel diminished control over their lives. 52% have difficulty maintaining relationships. 49% begin or increase drug use. My friend that I was telling you about started having marital issues later in life, and the whole reason was reflected back to her abortion. She said that every time that she would have to have sex with her husband, she felt like it was almost a rape. She felt like she was being attacked, and she related it back to the instruments of and how aggressive the abortionist was to her. So in the Canadian Journal of Psychiatry in April of 2010, they released findings which involved over 3,000 women. Women in the study who underwent an abortion had 98% increased risk for any mental health disorders compared to women who did not have an abortion. Women who had abortions also had 59% increased risk for suicidal thoughts, 61% increased risk for mood disorders, 61% increased risk for social anxiety disorders, 261% increased risk for alcohol abuse, 280% increased risk for any substance use disorder. And then I put this quote on there, and that's the family of Terry Schiavo, if y'all remember Terry Schiavo, who lost her life. And this was her mother and her father and her sister, who were court-ordered to stay out of the hospital facility she was in. And her husband, who had actually started living with another woman, was ordered that he could decide that Terry was taking off all her feedings and that she would literally starve to death. And her family had fought that, and they lost. And then he banned them from being in the room with Terry. So they had to stay outside the facility. And this was a picture someone took of them outside the facility. It says, "We cannot diminish the value of one category of human life, the unborn, without diminishing the value of all human life. There is no cause more important." And guys, we are seeing that right now. I mean, right now, we're seeing assisted suicide, euthanasia being brought up. We're seeing now a telemed machine that Planned Parenthood is wanting to do, where you actually can go to a machine and punch in and get your abortion pill that way. So you don't have to see the doctor and go through all that and get an ultrasound. That's going to be really safe. And of course, if you look at what's been done with Planned Parenthood, it's a very easy way, and we know this is happening, very easy way for incest victims they can just take them in, have the abortion done, keep repeating the violence and the rapes, because you can just go ahead and take care of the pregnancy if they get pregnant. Can you imagine with these little vending machines with abortion pills in them? I also have an article in here that I'll give you too when I pass out the handouts, where there are cases that have been done where the husbands or the boyfriends, for whatever reason, knew that their wife or their girlfriend was pregnant. They did not want them to be pregnant. So they were able, because we can go buy these now, we have no parental laws, okay, we banned all the parental laws, so you can just go get these when you're younger, to go get these pills at the pharmacy for yourself. They would go get these pills, put them in their wife or their girlfriend's drinks, and actually cause the abortion. And I have the cases for you in some literature I brought. I mean, this stuff is happening right now. So politics. Our government supports the abortion agenda through presidential appointments, Supreme Court, congressional acts, funding programs with taxpayer dollars. Now, I want to stop and tell you a little bit about Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood has been around for a while. The founder of Planned Parenthood, and please guys do your research on this, you will be horrified. Planned Parenthood's founder was a lady named Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger believed in eugenics. Now I'm telling you, get her books, read her works, do the research. You will be horrified, and people need to know this. It's a pretty good kept secret, I think. Planned Parenthood's done a good job. Margaret Sanger believed in eugenics, which means she believed in the perfect race, kind of like Hitler did. She actually went and recruited some of Hitler's people to help her start her organization. Margaret Sanger's first plan, she believed in white supremacy, was to weed out the black population. Her plan is living very strong today. I've always said if she was still alive today, she would be applauding what our government has done, because we have got a lot of our black babies being aborted every single day, to where in the U.S. Census in 2000, the Hispanics actually went above blacks in the minority rankings, and it was due to how many deaths have been from abortion. She said in her works that blacks were like weeds in our society that needed to be eliminated. She actually put in place a plan, and she said maybe if we can get, because she said they were a subclass, that maybe if we could get some black preachers, maybe some religious folks to come in, then they would be persuaded and believe them. And then that's when she started her birth control league, because she actually wanted to eliminate that race. Her plan is actually living very strong today on that. It is unbelievable when you read her work. You can go get her books. It is beyond disturbing. She was funded, well funded. She left her first husband and the children, left them, ended up going, and they said she would be with the Rockefellers and the Fords, a lot of people with a lot of money, and it's in her work. And she would do all these things. She got into the occult. She ended up marrying her second husband, who was a very wealthy old man. He was a millionaire. She had a lot of funding. Our government gives Planned Parenthood hundreds of millions of dollars of our tax dollars every single year. Every year. This is a money-making business. Please look it up and do your research and know. Because we have Planned Parenthood right now, and I'll give you this so you can look over it. We have Planned Parenthood going in. We have different people who used to be in Planned Parenthood who are actually have been appointed in different offices right now with President Obama. We know that they go there for parties. We know that they're lobbying. We know that they're getting a lot of money. We know that they're pushing for more abortion rights and laws. I just did a presentation for a group going to Lima, Peru on a mission trip, and it was for STDs and abortion for the women there. And it's actually illegal there. But guess who was there a week before we sent our missionaries there? Hillary Clinton. Well, my goodness, why was Hillary Clinton in Lima, Peru? She was there to try to make abortion legal and to set up an abortion hotline. It is being pushed all over. A big push right now is going to Kenya to make it legal there. They're trying to make it worldwide, and it's just more and more and more money. It is unbelievable what is happening. So I pray your eyes are opened. I've got documentation. Look it up. Do your research. You will be horrified. But the more that you are informed, the more you can speak out about the injustice that's happening. So please be informed. So, what can you do to save a life? Be informed. Vote pro-life. People used to say, well, that's just an issue. What about education? What about health care? I'm like, if you want to look at health care, if you want to see health care, I promise you, you look for the either pro-life or pro-choice. It will be one way or the other. It's almost like watching a ping pong tournament of who's in office, of who's appointed, what Supreme Court justices, what are we going to do? Know your candidates. Contact representatives and defund Planned Parenthood. I'm on the list to defund Planned Parenthood. You can actually go to Google the site, defund Planned Parenthood, and go on the website. Speak out, be informed, speak for those who can't speak for themselves. If you don't think this issue is going to affect us, look at our health care bill right now. Just look at it. Look who is involved in writing the health care bill. It's very frightening. Support crisis pregnancy centers. Of course, we have ours here in town. Please keep in mind, your crisis pregnancy centers, we have over 3,300 in the United States, thank God. Ours here, like I said, we see over 400 clients a month. We have 70 to 80 volunteers who volunteer there, 6 OBGYNs who volunteer there. It is a nonprofit organization. We receive no government funding. We don't want to receive any government funding. We're there to help women, families, men, help these babies in any way that we can. That's what we're there for. We're not paid to be there. We're there because we care. And then pray for lives to be saved. And that's literally and spiritually. So I want to end with this, the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All right, does anybody have any questions? Do you have a question? Right. Well, see, and that's what's happened. If you look back in literature, pro-choice and pro-abortionists have always said it's just a blob of tissue. Well, they know now by medical science they can't say that any longer. They still do to our girls in clinics. I know because I talk to them every week. I know what they're saying. They still do because they know that these girls don't know. So how do you fight it for litigation and for legal purposes? You can't say, oh, that 8-week-old baby, that's not a child. Well, yeah, we know it is. So what do you say? Well, it's when they have consciousness, or it's when they're viable. That's a big term they like to use now. When they're viable. And viability they want to look at is outside the womb, can they live? Well, we know we have babies who live at 20 weeks outside the womb, if you want to look at viability. But I go back, and you have to say, who is trying to make this argument? And why are they trying to make this argument? And when you look at life, we know that a unique human individual is made at conception. That can never be changed. So it's just more rhetoric, if you will, from the pro-choice and pro-abortionist trying to disregard life.
View it as a right.
The thing that I would say is, through counseling, when you have people who are talking about their rights, and even when you see someone who comes in and they say, I'm having an abortion, that's their choice. It's a legal right now in the United States of America for them to do that. But they need to be informed. And when you really look at abortion, for whatever reason, and we'll talk about rape and incest too, I'll go into that. But when you look at it for an unplanned pregnancy, it's a very selfish act. But what the mother doesn't realize is the damage that's going to be done to her, physically and psychologically. And when you can tell them what is going to happen, just be informed, just let them know, then they look at that because it affects their person, it affects them. When you look at a feminist view and they go, well, that is a woman, that is her right, that's her body, and they're arguing with that, I'll look at it and I go, if you're so concerned, I mean, first of all, just look at what Planned Parenthood does to a woman, okay, hello, but if you're so concerned about that woman, then what about the woman in the womb? Why aren't we protecting their life?
Mantra of God.
Okay, pro-life. And let me explain this. Pro-life, because a lot of people don't know what pro-life and pro-choice means. And some people say, oh, I'm pro-life or I'm pro-choice, and they have no idea. And some people think, oh, pro-choice, that's a good thing. That's for the mom and the baby. And it's kind of deceptive. Pro-life means you're for life. And you believe that that is a unique human individual. Now, we do have pro-life created by God, but we do have atheists and agnostics who are pro-life. We have different religious groups that are pro-life. I am a Christian, I am pro-life, and I'm about as conservative as you can get. And I am going to fight for that life because I believe that God is on His throne. That's what He's called me to do, and I am pro-life. Now, a group who is pro-choice, they like to say pro-choice instead of pro-death, but pro-choice is for choice. It's for choice, reproductive rights is what they like to say. Freedom of reproductive rights. They have all these nice little sayings that are kind of deceptive, but I like to call it what it is. It's for choice to be able to say, I'm going to do what I want to do, and I don't care if anyone's harmed by it, and I will take the life of my child if it's an inconvenience to me. I hope that helps. But you do have groups that are pro-life and they fight for life, and you have groups that are pro-choice and they fight for choice. Any other questions? Voting and knowing and calling representatives. I call representatives, I write letters.
You said something about a website that you can
Defund Planned Parenthood. You can go on there. The biggest thing is to expose people. I asked my father, he's in his 70s, and I said, Dad, what do you think Planned Parenthood is? This was several years ago. He said, Planned Parenthood. Now, isn't that an organization that helps families? Like if they want to adopt or do? And he had this total different image of it. And I thought, wow, they've done a good job. They've done a good job. Well, and that is, and if you look, when you look at what abortionists say, and when you go back and you look at Roe v. Wade, and you look at Doe versus Bolton, which was a case that went right after it, that made it legal for full term 9 months on a healthy baby, healthy mother. For any reason, you could go in and say, oh, it's a girl, no, I wanted a boy, kill it. I mean, it was just, it made it, it just opened the door up for all these cases. When you go back and you read them, and you read what the Supreme Court justices say, it's appalling. It's appalling because they use terms that the product of conception, or they use, they don't ever call it what it really is. They use all these vague terms that people just really don't understand, and they don't think anything about it. And they don't understand this is taking a human life. Yes?